Hello and a warm welcome to Sarat Chandra IAS Academy, where your dreams are on mission. This is Yatharth here. Today we'll be dealing with an important lecture related to environment, especially the climate change and its effect on the sea. We'll be dealing with multiple questions here regarding prelims, and at least 10 questions will be covered during the lecture. Alright, to begin with, let us see first of all the observation from where it all starts. So, daily sea surface temperature across the years. Let's say, so these are the graphs. This is the temperature versus the months or years. Starts from January and ends in December. So, it's a year long graph. Alright, so basically, we observe that the ocean temperature rises during the March and decreases mostly during the June July season, taking a rise again and taking a dip again. All right, so it's fluctuating through the year. However, what we see that across the years, this is from 2024 and this is 2023. So what do we observe here? That 2024 has the highest temperature, followed by 2023, and as the years keep passing by, we see here that the temperature keeps on increasing from between around 19.7 degrees Celsius to around now 21 and furthermore to 21.3 degrees Celsius. Alright, so there has been a significant rise in the global average sea temperature. That is our first observation. So you can cite this report and this data. Alright. So let us introduce the average global sea surface temperature, that is SST. The temperature of the water at the ocean surface for February 2024 stood at 21.06 degrees Celsius. So we are talking about 21.06 degrees Celsius here. That is rather warm for the SST. The highest ever in a dataset that goes back to 1979. So in the last 40 years, we see the highest temperature now in the year 2024. The previous record of 20.98 degrees Celsius was set in August 2023. Alright, so it is significantly increasing. Now the question arises that why are the oceans getting warmer? What is the reason behind this all? Alright, just a second. So since the Industrial Revolution kicked off in the 19th century, we are talking about close to 1850s. Human activities such as burning fossil fuel. Now this fossil fuel is our second topic. Alright, have released high levels of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. Which gases? Note these carefully. Carbon dioxide, that is CO2. Methane, that is CH4. Ozone O3 and nitrous oxide NO2 are some of the notable GHGs. Alright, so please remember the GHGs, which essentially trap heat in the atmosphere and contribute to the global warming. As a result, the average global temperature has risen at least 1.2 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial levels, and our target was keeping it below 1.5 degrees Celsius. So almost 90% of the extra heat trapped by the GHGs have been absorbed by the oceans. Alright, because the ocean surface is pretty big on our globe. Alright, it's 70% oceans only 30% of the land area. Alright, so making them steadily warmer over the decades. So this is a result of what? Global warming, the result of the GHGs. And these all warming is anthropogenic. That means caused by the humans, making them steadily warming over the decades. The oceans are like our saviors. In a way, things might be a lot worse in the term of climate impacts, because a lot of that heat is not only kept at the surface, it is taken to the depth. So what does this heat change at the depth? What are the effect of the heat at the ocean depth? So let us see about that. First of all, industrial revolution. Let's clear this. So the industrial revolution is spanning from the late 18th to 19th century marked a profound shift in human history, characterized by the transition from agrarian to and handicraft economies to industrialized societies, fueled by mechanization, urbanization, and technological advancement. So what do we see here? Fossil fuels. Just a second. So what do we see here? Fossil fuels and burning of the fossil fuels like petrol, diesel, oil, coal, all right, and all of these emit carbon in any form, and carbon has many forms, whether let's say CO2, CH4, all right, and the pollutants have multiple other forms such as nitrogen, NO2. So these all are greenhouse gases. All right, so industrial revolution was the prime step where we started the climate change. Let us also learn about the CO2 cycle. All right, what is the CO2 cycle? So this is CO2. All right, it is primarily produced by the respiration or basically a cycle of the carbon. We cannot say that it is produced or absorbed. It is a complete constant cycle that is going on in the world. All right, so let's see. Let's start from anywhere. Plant respiration. Let's take from here. All right, so respiration process. Any thing who is living or which is living takes O2 and emits CO2. This CO2 then goes to this environment or atmosphere. From here, it is absorbed by the plants again during the photosynthesis process. So CO2 is absorbed and O2 is released in the atmosphere again. So that is O2 cycle. So this all happens in the presence of sunlight. Now what happens when let's say leaves are fallen or when the branch is fallen to the ground, then or let's say the whole tree is dead. So what happens? This becomes a decaying organisms. All right, this becomes a carbon matter or organic matter. From here, CO2 goes or carbon goes into the ground. All right, and same thing happens with the animals. So when animals are dead, their waste product, they go into the ground. And via the ground, they either become or go into fossil fuels or are absorbed by the oceans with the run of water or groundwater seepage. All right. One more thing, the same CO2 is also released by the auto and factory emissions. So this is essentially the CO2 cycle. So this is where we learn that how CO2 goes to the oceans. All right, there are other factors also. The environmental CO2, atmospheric CO2 also can go to the oceans. We'll learn about it later in the lecture. Okay. Moving forward, what we see, the greenhouse gas effect. All right, so how do greenhouse essentially trap the heat? All right, so the sun is the producer of the heat. So it sends this heat through the infrared rays, UV rays here on the earth. Some of them are absorbed at the surface. All right, some of them are reflected back to the space. This you can read in a topic known as the heat budget or solar budget. This is all topics of environment. All right, some of them are reflected, some of them are absorbed. Now what happens that some of this is reflected by the surface also, and some reflections pass across the atmosphere, but some of them are not able to pass across the atmosphere because of these gases. All right, these are the gases which trap the heat which is reflected from the earth's surface. All right, so it comes from the sun and getting reflected, this is trapped by these gases. So these are the gases which are responsible for the global warming. Which gases? Greenhouse gases or GHG. All right, human activities also release the greenhouse gases. Which activities? Such as let's say deodorants. All right, they have CFC. These automobiles and the jet fuels, these also release high amount of nitrogen, methane. All right, livestock, this is the largest producer of the methane, CH4. All right, and whether the industries, they are highest producer of nitrogen as well as carbon. So this is the greenhouse gas effect. Okay, so apart from the global warming, there are other factors also which have led to a spike in ocean temperature. For instance, El Nino. All right, so what is El Nino? We will see a weather pattern that refers to an abnormal warming of ocean waters, ocean surface waters in the equatorial Pacific Ocean. So it has contributed to both ocean warming and rising global surface temperatures. Please remember these words carefully. First of all, it is a global warming phenomena. It is related to warming. Second, it is related to surface water, not deep water. In which region? In the equatorial region. In which ocean? In the Pacific Ocean. Alright, so any of these things can change and the answer will change. There is also less dust blowing off the Sahara Desert. So we'll have to see what is this phenomena and what is the effect of this phenomena. Alright, due to weaker than average winds. Typically, the dust forms a giant umbrella that shades the Atlantic water. So it produces the dust blowing off the Sahara Desert produces what? A cooling effect on the Atlantic water. Alright, and reduces ocean temperatures according to the Wired magazine report. But now the umbrella has partially folded and more of sun is beating down on the ocean. Alright, now let's talk about the El Nino phenomena. So this is normal weather. So let's see the normal weather conditions. So the wind are the most important part here. So southeast trade winds are blowing in this direction, let's say. All right. Now with the winds blowing, the water also blows to this side. All right. This is the warm surface water which blows. Now warm surface water carrying the moisture. Now when it reaches to this shore, the moisture goes upwards and it rains here. Alright, and the dry wind again goes here. Now as the warmer water is going this side, the colder water is coming this side and it creates an upwelling zone here. Alright, so fishing is very good here in this side. In the normal weather. Now what happens in the El Nino weather? These southeast trade winds are not present. So because of this warm surface water is not able to go here, this side. Alright, neither the cold surface water is trying to come this side. So welling is also not present. This water becomes hot. Alright, this water becomes hot and goes upward. So instead of raining here in the Australian side, what happens that it rains here in the South American side, in the Pacific Ocean, and it floods here. So this is the El Nino weather. Alright, and there is another thing which is known as the La Nina weather. La Nina weather event. So it is opposite of this. We'll read it in a separate lecture. Alright, let's see now the Saharan dust forecast or Saharan dust, what it does. Alright, so this here we see the Africa. And from the Africa, the Saharan region here, the dust blows off. Alright, and it creates this huge umbrella on the Atlantic Ocean. Alright. This is also why I told you that using Google Earth is better for the mapping process. Now you may not be able to understand completely how Atlantic came here. Alright, above Africa. So it's not above Africa actually, it is on its own place, but the projection is changed, nothing else. Alright, Mediterranean is still this side. Okay, let's move on. So why are the rising sea surface temperature are a cause of worry? What are their effects? Alright, so let's see that. So higher ocean temperatures can have irreversible consequences. For instance, warmer oceans lead to an increase in ocean stratification. Now what is this ocean stratification? Alright, we'll see this. The natural separation of an ocean waters into horizontal layers. Alright, please remember horizontal layers, not vertical layers, alright. By density with warmer. What is the pattern? Warmer, lighter, less salty and nutrient poor water layering on the top of heavier, colder, saltier and nutrient rich water. Alright, so upper side what we see? Warmer, less salty, lighter and nutrient poor. And downside what we see? Nutrient rich, colder, alright, heavier and saltier, nutrient rich water. So this is on the downside. So usually ocean ecosystems, current, wind and tides mix these layers. Alright, so there is mixing of these layers, constant mixing, upwelling, downwelling, everything. So but what is happening due to the climate change? What is happening? The sea surface temperature is constantly more. So this process is not or being hindered, let's say. So the rise in temperature has made it harder for water layers to mix with each other. Due to this, oceans are able to absorb less carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, and oxygen absorbed isn't able to mix properly with cooler ocean waters below, threatening the survival of marine life. Alright, now let's see this diagram. Here we see two terms actually, thermocline and halocline. So what is thermo? Thermo means temperature, and halo means salt. Alright, and cline means a level. You must have heard other terms like isocline, isohaline. Alright, so halocline, we see that the fresh water is upside and salty, the level of salty water is downside, and upside the water is warm and downside the water is cold. Alright, What else we see? That upside it is light and downside it is heavy. Okay. Now what we see that warm, fresh and oxygen rich water, dark, deep water, no photosynthesis. Alright, in the very upper layers. Cold, salty and oxygen poor waters, and as we keep going down, what happens? That calcium carbonate dissolves, carbon composite. So density of ocean water increases with depth. Alright, please remember this thing. That density of ocean water increases with depth. Alright, this is a true statement if comes in question. And what is this depth? 4,000 to 6,000 meters. Alright, let's move forward. So these two terms let us first see. Very important for prelims, thermocline and halocline. So it's a region within the ocean where there is a rapid change in the temperature with depth. Separates the warmer surface water from the colder, deeper waters. Alright, typically the thermocline is most pronounced in tropical and subtropical regions where there is a sharp contrast in temperature between surface water heated by the sun and deeper, colder waters. So more pronounced in the tropical and subtropical regions. Alright, please remember this. And not more pronounced in the colder regions like Arctic, Antarctic, more pronounced in the tropical and subtropical region. Let's talk about the halocline. So halocline refers to a layer in the ocean where there is a rapid change in salinity with depth. Alright, so it separates the ocean layer with different salinity levels such as fresher surface water from saltier waters below. And haloclines are commonly found in regions where freshwater input from sources like rivers or melting ice interact with seawater. So this is also again very important, that what is the cause of formation of sharp haloclines. Alright, so this is again a prelims question, very important. Now what we see in the colder regions, or like let's say Arctic halocline, how it is formed. Alright, so here is the water, ice, and ice we know it's purely water. Ice is pure water. No salt. Salt is not found in the ice. Alright, so whenever there is an ice formation, salt is released from the bottom. And this salt goes into the bottom part of the ocean. Alright, so it is cold, saltier water, and this is cold, fresh water. Both water are fresh, so thermocline is not present here very highly. A sharp thermocline is not present, but a sharp halocline is present in the Arctic waters. Alright, let's move forward. So what are the process or what are the mechanism through which CO2 exchange takes place in an ocean? So first mechanism is the air-sea gas exchange. So a direct exchange. Alright, so this is the primary mechanism. Please remember, this is the most abundant mechanism, primary. That means first degree, through which CO2 is exchanged between the atmosphere and the ocean. So CO2 in the atmosphere dissolves into the surface water of the ocean, driven by differences in CO2 concentration directly between the two mediums. This is the reason. Alright, please remember that it is the most abundant process and this is the reason for this. Alright, conversely, CO2 from the ocean can also be released into the atmosphere if surface water are oversaturated with CO2. Okay, second process is the biological pump. It involves the uptake of CO2 by marine phytoplanktons during photosynthesis. They are also part of the ocean because when they die or when they dead, alright, whenever they die, so what happens, their CO2 will go to the ocean finally. So phytoplankton converts CO2 into organic carbon through photosynthesis using sunlight as energy, and when they eventually die or consumed by other organisms, their carbon remains in the ocean in the deeper layers, and this also produces the fossil fuel. Okay, third method is the solubility pump. So it refers to the ability of ocean to absorb store CO2 in its water based on temperature and pressure. So cold ocean waters can dissolve and store more CO2. Please remember this fact. Cold means more CO2. Cold means more CO2. Okay, then warm waters. So regions with colder temperatures tend to absorb more CO2 from the atmosphere. This is known as the solubility pump. So deep ocean currents circulate these cold CO2 rich waters to deeper layers where they can be stored for long periods, effectively sequestering CO2 from the atmosphere. So please remember that colder water have more CO2, or colder ocean area regions have more CO2. Alright, the fourth one is the carbonate buffering system. So carbonate buffering system involves the equilibrium between dissolved CO2, bicarbonate ions, carbonate ions and carbonic acid in seawater. This can also be asked in the prelims as a statement. Alright, so as CO2 dissolves in seawater, it forms carbonic acid which can dissociate into bicarbonate and carbonate ions. Now, this buffering system help regulate pH levels in the ocean, and pH levels are very, very important for the marine plants. Marine plants like corals. All right. So let's talk about this thing. So nutrients are also not able to travel up to the surface of the ocean. So we already know that upper water are nutrient poor, lower water are nutrient rich. So if this mixing is not happening, then the nutrient are not able to come up. So this could threaten the population of phytoplankton, single-celled plants, and thrive on the ocean surface, and are the base of several marine food webs. Phytoplankton are eaten by zooplanktons, which are consumed by other marine animals such as crabs, fish, and sea stars. So basically, what happens? This cycle goes on in the ocean. Now, if the nutrient is not able to come up, then this cycle will stop. All right, they will sit deep in the ocean only. For this cycle to continue, because they are vertically arranged, this cycle is vertically arranged. Phytoplanktons are here, zooplanktons are here, deeper marine organisms are here. So warmer oceans cause marine heat waves also. So these are MHW, which occur when the surface temperature of a particular region of the sea rises to 3 or 4 degrees Celsius above the average temperature for at least 5 years. Alright, so please remember this. This statement can be asked in the prelims, that at least 5 days, sorry, not years. So 5 days can be, let's say, highlighted portion of the statement. Okay. So between 1982 and 2016, such heat waves have doubled in frequency and become longer and more intense. All right. So MHW, that are marine heat waves, they are devastating for marine ecosystem as they contribute to coral bleaching. Okay, this is a very strong phenomena, coral bleaching. So what is this coral bleaching we need to see? Which reduces the reproductivity of corals and makes them more vulnerable to life-threatening disease. All right, what are corals? They are very, very important part of the oceans. All right, coral are basically carbonate or calcium carbonate plant bodies. Okay, and there are small organisms living in them. Okay, so it's an alive body apart from the structure. So there are marine organisms which live in the polyp and medusa phases. All right. So in the polyp phase, they live as a stagnant body and they keep producing these carbonated shells. Okay, and there are small holes in them in which the some animal-like bodies live. Okay, which produce oxygen also for the nearby environment. This is a very big coral reef in Australia, the Grand Coral Reef. All right. So according to the several studies, higher ocean temperature may also result in more frequent and more intense storms like hurricane and cyclones. So what are these hurricane and cyclones? We need to see. All right. And warmer temperature lead to a higher rate of evaporation as well as the transfer of heat from ocean to the air. So which type of this mechanism is increased? We saw earlier this biological pump as well as air-sea gas exchange. All right, this is increased. All right, let's come now to the coral. Okay, so these are the healthy corals you see, and these are the bleached corals. Bleached corals mean there is nobody living in them. Now they are empty. And these are dead coral. All right, ultimately the plant also dies or the organism also dies. So zooxanthellae in the coral tissue. So these are zooxanthellae living in the empty coral tissues, and these are expelled from the tissues when what happens? When the water temperature increases. All right, so limited water temperature is needed for them, but not very high temperature. All right, and prolonged temperature stress leads to them completely dead skeleton covered in algae. All right, so algae will come instead of these zooxanthellae. So healthy coral in few days or weeks become the bleached coral, and furthermore they become the dead coral. So this type of bleached coral can be restored to the healthy coral if the water temperature returns to normal. So this can be a cycle, but not completely. All right, they are in the coral polyp phase. All right, so that's why when storms travel across hot oceans, they gather more water vapor and heat. This results in more powerful winds, heavier rainfall, and more flooding when a storm reaches the land, meaning heightened devastations for humans. So this and also, let's say, a topic in the disaster management. So whenever there is a hurricane, let's say, traveling through a warm surface of water, All right, so it will also carry more moist wind because the pressure here will decrease because of the heat. All right, so it will carry more moist wind, and whenever it rains, wherever it rains, it will cause more flooding, more harm. All right. So the only way to avoid or blunt the aforementioned consequences is to reduce GHG emissions. So GHG, we are seeing these are all effect of the global warming. So this world, however, is nowhere close to doing that. In 2023, the concentration of GHG reached the highest levels ever recorded in the atmosphere, according to C3S system, climate system. Okay, let's also meanwhile see the tropical cyclone. All right, what are these tropical cyclones? So whenever there is a low pressure area, that means warm surface is required for formation of a cyclone, large warm ocean water. So warmer the ocean, okay, stronger the cyclones. In the future, the cyclones will be stronger. So this is known as the eye of the cyclone, where the cyclone originates. Okay, furthermore, this eye becomes bigger and bigger. Okay, but what happens that the moisture also comes up with this air. Okay, moisture also comes up. So subsiding warm air and descending cool air. So we are seeing the subsiding warm air. Okay, and warm air cools, then we see the outflow. Okay, and this is the water carrying area. This completely is the water carrying area. Okay, so the rotation is this counterclockwise. And furthermore, what we see that this is at the height of 15,000 to 18,000 meters. All right, this is the wall of the eye. So what is the eye of the cyclone? This eye is where the amount of the pressure is the lowest. All right, this has already been asked in the prelims, and this maximum height is reaching the troposphere. All right, not the stratosphere. Furthermore, we see many people asking that what is the difference between hurricane, cyclone, all right, typhoon. So there is no difference. Hurricane, typhoon, and cyclone are the same type of storm. They are named depending on where they are from. So let us solve this for one and all. So in this region, in the Atlantic region, they are known as the hurricane. All right, and down in the Atlantic region and towards this Antarctic, they are known as the cyclone. Also in the Pacific region, they are known as the cyclone. All right, so whenever in India something happens, it is also always known as the cyclone. All right, in the Chinese region here, in this Pacific Ocean region only, in the South China Sea, they are known as the typhoons because it is more popular terminology here near the Philippines and this section. Okay, and in the Americas, they are always known as hurricane. Okay, in the northern Americas, and water temperature is usually too cold to form cyclones to form. In this region, water temperature is too cold, so cyclones are not usually formed. All right, this is also very close to Antarctica. Okay, and in this region again, they are known as the cyclone. We are seeing essentially the same region here. This is just a projection sort of thing. All right, so it's completely around globe. Okay, so in this lecture, we learned a lot of things. All right, this is why I took it as a single lecture so that you don't miss the points. We are mostly seeing the effects of, we are making a mind map here. All right. So we are essentially seeing the effects of global warming on the sea surfaces and what it affects, how it affects the land. All right. So why is it getting warmer? One is El Nino. This is the natural phenomena. And second is anthropogenic action such as the GHG. All right, what produces GHG? The fossil fuel burning. Okay, we saw the mechanism of action. GHG mainly, which of the GHG are main? CO2, CH4, and nitrogen oxides, NO2, etc., and O3. All right, in their presence in the stratosphere. Okay, what is the mechanism of action? They are trapping the heat essentially, which the Earth's surface reflects. All right, causing a oven-like structure here. All right, so basically this is the mechanism of GHG, and now this GHG is also warming the sea surface temperature. Now what is happening because of this? The nutrients are not getting mixed up, the CO2 cycle is not going well out, there are marine heat waves. All right, the cyclones are getting stronger, the flooding is getting stronger. All right, all of this is happening. There are other reasons also. Sahara dust is not completely, creating that shed there. There is El Nino also. It is also increasing. This year for India is also the year of El Nino. Okay, so that is why the temperature is a lot this summers. So these all are the factors where we can develop understanding, and furthermore we developed understanding towards the halocline, what is thermocline. So all of these things you can make a mind map about in short notes. All right, and this will help you ace the prelims, of course, the environmental section if any question comes from here. So remaining topics we'll deal with in the next lecture. Thank you very much. This is Yatharth here. I'll see you in the next lecture. Have a great day. Keep studying. See you soon.